I'm Marley Bird, and in this video I will teach you the second portion of the Nomad Fair Isle knit pullover. As you know, this is a 5-part video series where I am walking you through every step you need to know to create this fantastic Fair Isle pullover sweater. This is a top-down sweater worked in the round with multiple colors. There's a lot going on, but with my help, you will have a successfully finished sweater at the end of these videos. By this point, you should have completed your homework before you can move on to this next step. If you need help with the homework, please go back and review video 1. I have put a link in the video description box right down there below. You will also find a link to the pattern, which is free, at yarnspirations.com down there below as well. You have to have your homework completed to move on to the next step. So go ahead, finish up your homework if you haven't, then come back over here and you can move forward with the rest of us. For everybody else, hopefully you have something that looks a little something like this. This is your cowl portion of this beautiful sweater. You have done some really cool stranded Fair Isle color work. Congratulations. I know that many of you in the Facebook group have mentioned that you weren't really sure if you could complete this sweater and you were really nervous, but then once you got the yarn and the needles moving together, working both hands for that Fair Isle, you found that it was just as easy as I told you it would be. I told you I'm not going to lie to you. I'm going to give you all the tools. Okay, so at this point, let's go ahead and take a look at the next portion of this sweater pattern. Let's move the cowl out of the way here. And after the last video, we ended right after this section here at the end of chart number 1. And now we are going to move on to this part here, the shaping of the front neck by doing short rows, and we will work through chart number 2. So all of these instructions are what we will do for this week's part of the knit along. Okay, so if you want to work along with me to make sure you're on track to complete this sweater in a timely manner, this is the portion I want you to complete before we move on to video number 3. At this point in the pattern, we have finished our cowl, and it's time to actually move on to the yoke of the sweater. When we work the yoke of the sweater, we will begin to increase stitches, so that way we go from this circumference all the way out to where we can fit over our shoulders. As we do that, we are also going to be working a front neck short rows. What that means is we are going to be adding some short rows to our sweater, so that way the back of our sweater is a little bit higher than the front of our sweater. So as you wear it, you're not going to feel like you're constricted, like everything is kind of fallen to the back of your body. It's going to let the fabric on the front drape a little bit more to the front. It's very simple shaping. We will work the wrap and turn, and then I'm going to show you how to do a German short row. So I'm going to show you 2 short row methods, and you can decide which one works best for you. Once we get through the short row section, we then will do another round of increases. So we have our make 1 increase, which we know how to do. We learned that in video 1. And then we continue on with chart number 2 to the end of the chart. Again, it's a 4-stitch repeat, and we will work this either 30 or 36 times around. Then we will knit around with our main color, and then once again we have another round of increases, and then we have another round knit in our main color. So out of all of these instructions, the only thing you might not know how to do are these short row wrap and turns, or the German short rows that I will show you. You already know how to do the make 1. You already know how to read charts. So as we have all of our stitches on our work, we will just follow through chart number 2, just as we did with chart number 1. So you already know how to do that. Congratulations. So in this week's video, we're really going to pay attention to the short row portion. I do want to address something about circular needles, because at this point, some of you are still on your double points, and you might be wondering, hey Marley, when do I get to transfer over to my circulars? Well, do you remember in video 1 when I showed you how to do the magic loop when you were working on the sleeves? Well, you could do that on the body of your sweater right now as well with those 36-inch length needles. So you could do magic loop. Or if you have an interchangeable set, or you have another set of needles of the same size but a different length that works with the number of stitches you have around your cowl portion at this point, or as we increase the stitches, whatever that number is, you can transfer to those needles as well. As long as it's the same size needle but different cord, the cord length doesn't really matter as long as your stitches are comfortable as they rest on the cord and they aren't too stretched out or too squished together. That's the most important thing. So the long and short of it is, the long and short of it, get it? The long needle and short needle. These are the jokes, people. No. The long and short of it is this. When you are comfortable enough to transfer over those stitches to a circular needle where they will rest comfortably on that needle, you should go ahead and do that. If that is at this point in time, after you do the make ones, do it then. If it's after we do the short rows and you do the next set of make ones, do it then. You decide for your own piece. I can't tell you exactly when it is because some of us are making the larger sizes, so we have more stitches on our needles than those of you who are making the smaller sizes who have fewer stitches. So we might be able to get onto our circular needles quicker than you can. Okay, does that make sense? Okay, so at this point, we are going to complete this part of the instructions before we move on to the short row section. Do you like how I wrote circular needles there? That was my note to make sure I told you when it was time to transfer those. Before we jump into the short rows, I think it's important to point out that when you're doing your make ones, you have two strands here to choose from as far as which one to do your make one with. Either the strand that's connected to the stitch on your left-hand needle or the one that is just getting floated across. What I would do is I would test out your make one on either one of those strands and choose which one looks best for you. To me, I would choose the one that gives me the smallest hole because I don't want a lot of holes in my work. But having said that, I will let you know that on the actual sample here, the increases that they use, the make ones, when they did them, it does create a hole in the fabric. Can you see that? So I guess the designer just didn't indicate which strand to pull up, and the holes were treated as a decoration versus as an unsightly mistake. So I wanted to point that out in case you are asking me which strand do you pull up. I would test out both of them. I found that one or the other looks better to me, and so you decide which one looks better for you. Okay, so that's all I'm going to say about the make ones because we learned how to do the make ones in video 1. Now I want to talk about short rows. Okay, speaking of short rows, let's take a look at the sample. Can you see that on this side of the sweater, it looks like we have quite a few rows between the motif right here and the motif down here where this chart ended down here, as compared to the other side of the sweater. See this side of the sweater, how there are fewer rows right here? That's because we did what are called short rows, and short rows allow us to add some extra rows in a designated spot on the sweater without increasing the total number of rows around the sweater. The short row technique that the designer wants us to use is a wrap and turn technique, which is a very common technique. I'll show you how to do it. You'll have a lot of fun. I also want to show you how to use a German short row technique in case you want to do that instead of the wrap and turn. So let's go ahead, bring in our swatch and practice these wrap and turns and German short rows. Okay, so I have a swatch here, and I have simulated that I am to the center of my cowl. So this would have been the starting round of my cowl, okay? And the pattern indicates that we are supposed to knit either 36 or 37 stitches, then do the wrap, the knit, and then turn. So we are going to pretend that I am knitting across 36 or 37 stitches, okay? Obviously, I don't have that number of stitches on this swatch, but we can pretend. All right, so let's say that was my 36 or 37. I now want to keep my yarn in back, slip this stitch as if to purl, bring my yarn forward, slip that stitch back onto my left-hand needle, bring my yarn back between my needles and back to the back. Now I turn. Okay, the next row says we're supposed to purl across 72 or 74 stitches, depending on the size you're making. Yes, I did turn my work. I am working in rows, not rounds for this portion, okay? So we will work in rows. And when you get to your marker, simply slip it over, okay? Don't remove it, just slip it over. And you will then carry on across all the stitches on this side of the marker until you get your total from where you did your wrap and turn to where we're going to do the next wrap and turn, which is either 72 or 74 stitches for your pattern, okay? So for me, that would be right here. I have my yarn in front, slip that stitch as if to purl, bring my yarn between my needles to the back, slip that stitch over, and then bring my yarn between my needles back to the front. Turn my work. Okay? I'm going to do the next one, which would be knit either 69 or 71 stitches. And then we will do a wrap and turn. Again, when you get to your marker, just slip it over. So I'm going to treat this next one as my wrap and turn. So my yarn is in back, slip a stitch as if to purl between my needles to the front, put that slip stitch back to my left hand needle, bring my yarn between my needles back to the back, and turn. Now I will purl either 66 or 68. My yarn is in front, slip a stitch as if to purl, yarn between my needles to the back, move that slip stitch back over, yarn between my needles to the front, and turn. Now it says slip the first wrap stitch and knit to marker. Well, we've already slipped it. We've already put it over there, okay? So I'm not going to slip it because it's already over there. And then I'm going to knit to my marker. And I'm back to my marker. It's at this point I will begin to work in the round again. So I'm going to work around. So when I get to where my wraps are, I am going to pick up the front leg of my wrap, put it on my needle, and knit my wrap and the stitch it's wrapped around together. And I can either knit those together through the front leg or the back leg. I'll show you how it looks for both of those methods. So I will begin to work in the round. So I'm back in just the round. I will not be turning my work. I knit to where my wrap and turn is, and there's the wrap. I want to show you. You can see the wrap. It looks like it's like strangled around the stitch. Can you see it right there? Okay. I want to pick up my wrap from the front leg and place it onto my left hand needle. Now I have seen people who will then at this point just knit those two together. So they knit the stitch itself and the wrap together, just like it would be a knit two together. Okay, and it looks like that. The other way I've seen is this. So now I knit over to where my next wrap and turn is. It's easier to see because it's a different color. I pick up the front leg of the wrap just like I did before and place it on my left hand needle. But this time I'm going to knit through the back leg of the stitch and the wrap. And when I do that, see how it forces the wrap to the back of the fabric, but it does twist the bottom of that stitch. Okay, so you decide which one works better for you. Either knitting two together, traditional method, or knitting two together through the back leg. You decide what works best. Then you will knit around. We're going to simulate in the round. I'm going to bring my yarn over here so that way we can get these wraps and catch them. You won't have to simulate in the round because you will be in the round when you do yours, but we all learned how to do this in video 1, so bear with me here as I simulate in the round. Pull that down a little bit here. There we go. All right, so we're to our first wrap and turn. Again, I pick up that front leg of the wrap, place it on my needle, and I can either knit it through the back leg, which I will do on this one. And what that does is it forces that wrap to the back, but it does twist the bottom of that stitch, okay? So we knit over to the other wrap and turn, and I'm going to show you a couple things here. So remember, these are the wrap and turns that we made with the wrap and purl. So you can grab the front leg of that wrap, bring it up and over that stitch, and then knit those two together. Okay, let's take a look at what that looks like. Kind of looks like the wrap is still showing on the front of the work. Can you see that? Okay. I don't really like that. So the other thing I've learned, I'm going to undo that and put it back to where it's in a normal position. Okay. The other thing that I've learned is if I pick up this wrap and put it on top of the needle, okay, I'm actually going to change the position of these two stitches. So I'm going to see, this is the stitch that was wrapped. That is my wrap. I'm going to pinch the stitch that was wrapped and hold it aside. I'm going to move my wrap over and then put my stitch that was wrapped back on. See how I kind of changed their position? Now I'm going to put those back on my left-hand needle and knit them together. By doing that, it hides the wrap behind the stitch and I don't get that unsightly kind of bar that's there. Okay, so I like to do that. I actually like that one a little bit better than knitting through the back leg because I don't get that twist. But it's, for me, when I'm on this side of the marker, when I'm doing short rows in this method, I either go through the back leg of the stitch or I change the position of the wrap and the stitch so it looks like that, because I think it just makes the fabric look better. Okay, and then I finish up and get to the end of the round. And when you get to the end of the round here, that's where you would then carry on and you would work an increase round and then go into your chart number 2. But you can see here, we've increased the number of rows between our turning points, and that gives us that extra fabric there on our sweater, okay? Now, if wrap and turns are not your cup of tea and you want to try out a different type of short row technique, there are several different techniques you could try. But let me show you how to do the German short row because it is really easy, and I'm not entirely sure why it's so easy. It reminds me a lot of the Japanese short row, but it's like it eliminates the extra step of adding those stitch markers. If you know anything about Japanese short rows, that makes sense to you. If not, don't worry about it. We can go over that later. But the German short row is really simple. It does eliminate those wraps, and it's just cool. So let me show you how to do the German short row in case you want to substitute it for the wrap and turn, okay? Okay, once again, I'm going to change colors. That way you can see the difference between the two. We're simulating, we're at the beginning of our row for the short rows. And once again, this is where I would knit across either 36 or 37 stitches. Okay, so I'm just going to pretend that this is my 36 or 37. And what I will do now is I will knit the next stitch. So this is the stitch that would have been wrapped, but I want to knit it and then turn my work. With my yarn forward, I want to slip that stitch over to my right hand needle. Now I want to take this yarn and bring it up over top of my right hand needle and give it a good tug. Yes, that pulls up the stitch below, making it look like it's 2 stitches or gives us that double stitch. This is something that a lot of beginners accidentally do, but this is something we want to do this on purpose, okay? This double stitch is taking the place of our wrap and turn, okay? So now we carry on with the next set of instructions, which would be purl 72 or 74. So with my yarn pulled back, I now bring my yarn between my needles and I will purl either 72 or 74. And just to be clear, you will choose one of these methods. You won't do this twice. You just either do the short rows with the wrap and turn or do the short rows with the German short row. You decide, but you don't want to do both. Okay, I'm going to get over here and we're pretending that this would have been my 72nd or 74th. Then I would purl the next stitch. This would have been my wrap and turn. And now I want to turn. When I turn, again, I want to make sure my yarn is in front. Okay, my yarn is in front. I slip that stitch, then I bring my yarn back over top of my right hand needle again, really pulling up and giving me that double stitch. Okay, you see that? Now I carry on with the next part of the instructions, which say I'm supposed to knit either 69 or 71, depending on the size you're making. So I will knit my 69 or my 71. Let's say it's right here, so that's 69 or 71. This would be my wrap and turn stitch, so I will go ahead and knit it, turn my work with my yarn in front. I slip that stitch, bring my yarn up over top of my right hand needle and give it a tug so I get that double stitch. Now I have to bring my yarn between my needles to the front, and this is where I purl either 66 or 68. Okay, let me move my marker over. So that would be my 66 or 68. I purl that next stitch and I turn my work. I want to bring my yarn forward, slip my stitch, bring my yarn over top my right hand needle to the back, making sure I get that double stitch, okay? And now that's the end of that wrap and turn, or that's the end of my German short row. So this would be the next row where it says to slip your wrap stitch. Well, we've already done that. So I'm going to knit back to my marker. So I'm going to knit back to my marker. And I'm ready to start working in rounds again. So now, as I work around, instead of having wraps to pick up and knit with the stitch, I will actually knit together these wrapped stitches, or these double stitches, okay? As I come to a double stitch, I'm just gonna knit the two legs of the double stitch together. It's really that easy. There's no wraps to pick up. So I will knit over to where the double stitch is, and just knit it. Just like that. It's that easy. And I'll go to the next one where the double stitch is, and I will knit it. And then I will knit to the next one, which in the round is all the way over here. So we're going to simulate, but let's take a look at that so far. I mean, look how pretty those are. And they're so easy because there's no wraps to pick up. All right, so we're going to simulate in the round, magic of television. I'm just scooching that around. Bring this up. Remember, you won't have to do that because you will be in the round. So here I am to a double stitch right here. I just knit the double stitch. I knit those together. And then I come to the next double stitch, which is right here. Okay, can you see? It looks really funny. It looks like this funny looking stitch, something you used to do when you were a beginner knitter. You just knit them together and off, and then go to the end of your round. Let me knit one more so the stitch marker doesn't fall off. But if you look down here, there's our German short row on this side. There's our German short row on this side versus our wrap and turns down here. There's one wrap and turn. Here's a wrap and turn. So this was the one that was a regular knit two together. This is the one where it was the knit two together through the back leg. This was the knit two together through the back leg. And then this is the one where I changed the position of the stitches. So it made it look really nice and seamless. Okay, so I gave you lots of different looks there. You can decide what one works best for your sweater for this really easy little section, but it is very important for your sweater to fit correctly. Once you finish those short rows, it's really simple. The next round is an increase round, so you'll do that make one round again, and then you jump in to chart number 2 of the pattern. Let's take a look at that just once so that way we can say we did. as I mentioned, you just finished the short rows, then you do an increase round, and then it's time to work chart number 2 of the pattern. Then you do a knit round with your main color, a knit round with your main color that is also an increase round. Make sure you are taking note of what is your main color and your contrasting color, and make sure you're still holding those colors in the same hands if you did 2 colors, one in each hand, or vice versa. Make sure the same color is always on top of the other color. Just everything we went through in video 1, keep that consistent throughout the entire sweater. Taking a look at the second pattern here, we can see I've already blocked off chart number 1, so that way it's out of my way, and I have all the other charts blocked off. So chart number 2, this is the one we are dealing with. It's a 4-stitch repeat. So right here we can see the dark is our main color, and then the white is our contrasting color. So we're creating some simple, really pretty geometric shapes going on here, and this is what we want to work through for this week's instructions. Make sure you do count all of your stitches after you do your rounds of increases to make sure you have the correct stitch count. I can't wait to see your progress with these short rows. Let me know if you're going to tackle that wrap and turn or the German short rows, or do you have a favorite short row method that you prefer? Let us know in the comments below. I hope you guys are having fun so far. The sweaters are looking beautiful in the knit along group, and the ones I see on Instagram. Very good job, y'all. Okay, I'm Marley Bird, and I'll see you in the next video. Bye. Thanks so much for joining me on the Marley Bird YouTube channel. If you liked what you saw, don't forget to hit subscribe. I've put a link right over there, or you can watch a couple of the videos I've already selected for you right down there. If you want to follow me on social media, I've put my links right over there. You could have all Marley all the time. Bye, guys.